Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and hello if you're new here. Thank you so much for joining. Today I am bringing you book recommendations that you absolutely need to read that I think are criminally underrated. I'm not saying that people haven't read these books, but the people who know how good these books are, but I need to see them spoken about more because they deserve way more recognition than they currently get. And if you are looking for books, maybe you're in a bit of a slump, you want to read something different, you don't want to read the typical things that are currently circulating everywhere and being really hyped up, because quite often I do find sometimes they fall a little bit flat. These are books that aren't being spoken about all the time, but I think they are so good. They're all 4 stars and above for me, and I think they're amazing. So I'm going to get into the books that I think are criminally underrated that you really need to read. So the first book is Entangled by R. Phillips. Now this is the first book in a trilogy. I will admit and say I haven't finished the trilogy yet. However, if you like the Ravenhood trilogy, you need to read this. You need to read this book because, first of all, I haven't read anything else like the Ravenhood series. Now that is a Robin Hood retelling but modern day, and sort of like draws from that sort of aspect of the Robin Hood story. This isn't the same in that plot sense. However, the whole love triangle, 2 guys, mystery, intrigue, like follows a girl who's a bit lost, she goes away and then she meets this guy. I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't want to ruin it, but that kind of vibe, that is all there in this book. It is so good. And it does kind of have the element of the Ravenhood. You know, in the Ravenhood trilogy where we're all part of like a society who takes from the rich to give to the poor, but it's kind of modern day-esque version of that. This kind of has that element in it where one of the characters, he's doing something, there's a bigger picture at play here. Obviously I haven't finished the trilogy, so even I don't know yet what's to come. It's giving me the same vibe and I really enjoy it. It's not set in like a city. This girl was like traveling, it's very beachy and very free-spirited. You know when they're just kind of like sitting on the beach and they've set a fire at night and they're all sat there with cans and playing music, and it's literally like that vibe. And I loved every second of it. The writing as well, it's really good. It's very easy to follow, but it's also really beautiful. It's definitely a book, you know when books are beautifully written and you feel like you want to annotate them and some of the things that characters are saying, the way that the prose is and everything. I just love it so much. I don't see many people talking about it, and I've heard that it just gets better. Obviously I can't, you know, put everything behind that opinion because I haven't finished it yet. The only reason why I didn't finish this is because I was in a huge reading slump when I read this book, and it got me out of the slump. And it is one of those books I feel like if I wasn't in a slump at the time and read it, I probably feel like I would have rated this nearly 5 stars. I think it only got the 4-star rating because I was in a slump, but it got me out of the slump for sure. And because of that, I also didn't want to dive straight into the next ones because I know I'm going to enjoy them. And you know, sometimes when you're in a slump, you can ruin books for yourself because you've read them at the wrong time. So I didn't want to do that with this series. Entangled by R. Phillips. I highly recommend it. Okay, so next up, I've spoken about this on my channel a couple of times. It's by Saffron A. Kent and it's called The Unrequited. This book, the writing is so beautiful. I've gone and bought 5 other books by Saffron A. Kent just because of this. The writing, honestly, stunning. It was just, I was so pleasantly surprised by this book because I haven't seen many people talking about this at all. A lot of people have read Dark Notes by Pam Godwin, which is a forbidden, like taboo teacher-student age gap romance. If you have read Dark Notes, you will love this book and you need to read it. It's really good. It's like Dark Notes, but it's the other way around where the student is obsessed with the teacher. It does deal with some very heavy topics. It does have the cheating trope in it, not between the 2 main characters, but I just thought I would disclose that. So listen, if you like Magnolia Parks, because that happens between the 2 main characters, you should still read this. Don't let that trope put you off because it's not between the 2 main characters in this book. It's really good. It deals with some very heavy subjects to do with some of the characters extended, like not even between or necessarily the 2 main characters, just like about life in general, things that people generally go through in life, and it really shows you the effects it can have on people's marriages, on people's mental health. I will say, when you read the book, the first couple of chapters, FMC Layla, she's kind of crazy, but I promise stick with it, because once you understand her more as the book goes on, you end up rooting for them, basically. You really do. It's heartbreaking. It didn't quite make me cry, but if you are somebody, I don't easily cry at books, but if you are somebody who can get emotional at books, you're probably going to cry at this one. It's very heavy, but it's so good. And the spice. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it because of how deep the story is. I wasn't expecting it. Anyone who's read Dark Notes by Pam Godwin, or if you like teenage student romance, if you like forbidden romance, all that good stuff, you need to read The Unrequited. Okay, right, this is new to me, and granted, I actually do feel like people are talking about this more, but I actually had this series on my shelf since last May. I had the first 3 books, I think, and since then the rest of the books have come out. I've only just picked it up to read it because I've seen people talking about it, and I remember thinking, I actually have that series. Honestly, this has been my entire personality for the last 10 days. This series is so good. It's the Hollow Boys series by Monty J. So the first book is The Lies We Steal. That follows one couple. Then the next book, this is The Truths We Burn. That follows the next couple. Our third couple get a part 1 and a part 2, which is The Truths We Burn part 1 and part 2. And then the 5th book, which for some reason I had up there, 5th book is Oath We Give. Stop what you're doing right now, just please. Okay, if you like the Devil's Night series, this is the closest thing I have found to the Devil's Night series. I rated 3 of these books in the series 5 stars. It's so damn good. Now what I will say is I do think Devil's Night is better, okay? But this is the closest I've got to it. Now don't expect the same storyline, but just in terms of the vibe, you know, the couples meeting their girls, what happens between them. Some of the couples, we get flashbacks from the past, from when they've known each other before, what happened to them before, and then leading up to the present. Everything gets kicked off at the events of one night, which happens in The Lies We Steal, between Briar and Alistair. It's set in a town where the 4 boys, the 4 main characters in it, so you've got Thatcher Pearson, Rook Van Doren, Alistair Caldwell, and then Silas Hawthorne. They are the 4 boys, they're best friends, they've kind of grown up together. Their parents are super rich, like some of them are politicians, some of them are like cyber security moguls, like they're very rich, they get away with whatever they want. That's very similar to Devil's Night, and it's about them basically meeting their girls in it, essentially. And the girls are so great. Lyra is now one of my favourite FMCs of all time, and so is Coraline. They are great. Then we've also got Briar and Sage as well. What happens is in the first book, Silas has this isn't really a spoiler because this is basically what kicks off the story, but Silas's girlfriend dies and everything around her death is very suspicious. They're looking into it and trying to find out what happened to her because they were childhood lovers, and essentially them looking into it, they realise there is so much going on in this town that they live in, even amongst all of their parents, you know, their rich parents. It's very corrupt, very crooked, lots of stuff going down, and they essentially decide to infiltrate all of that and bring it all to an end in the name of Silas and Rosemary, who was his girlfriend who dies. It just spirals from there basically. So there's lots of mystery. The plot's really good. Like Thatcher and Lyra's story is probably one of my favourite couples origin stories of all time. They are so good. It's a lot darker than the Devil's Night series as well, and it's definitely a lot more, I'd say, fast-paced. I think the Devil's Night series has a hell of a lot more depth between all of the characters, and the found family feeling in Devil's Night series is a lot stronger than we've got in these books, but still it is so good regardless. I think for me Devil's Night is just untouchable, but this is the closest thing I found to it. So if you liked it, you will absolutely love this series. It is one of the best series I've read to date. It's up there in my top 5 for sure. It's just incredible. It is a dark romance, so check your triggers. The spice is so good, but it does not overpower the plot in any way, shape or form. Now I know I've just got really passionate about it, but it's just so nice to find a series that makes you remember why I read dark romance, because what I'm finding now is dark romance is just being churned out like this at the minute, and they're not as good as they could be. Someone on my Bookstagram the other day did a story saying, I just want to go back to the era of when Devil's Night was out, The Sinner's Duet was out, Haunting and Hunting Adeline, and I totally agree. I feel like that was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I just feel like everything that's coming out now just does not hit the same as those until this series. So I really recommend it. And to be honest, guys, these are some of the prettiest books that I have on my shelves. Like, they're actually stunning. I'm so obsessed with this series, in case you couldn't tell, because I've just got so excited. Okay, so now that I've got that out of the way, it's staying on the theme of dark romance. If you don't like bully romance, you're not going to like this because the bullying is intense. But Even If It Hurts by Sam Mariano, for all my dark romance lovers out there, you have got to read this book. I think Chase Darrington, who is nicknamed Dare, is probably one of the most unhinged MMCs ever. He's unsettling. I was unsettled reading this book the way he is. He is a true sociopath through and through, that it was genuinely unsettling to read. He's so crazy, but like, I ate this up. I could not put this book down. I will say, yeah, it's heavy on the bully element, new adult dark romance, which is kind of like my favourite. That's the sweet spot for me of dark romance, because any older, I would genuinely find it really difficult to digest. I'd be like, why are you all behaving this way? This is the ultimate, I've set my eyes on you, you are now going to be mine. I own you, I will control you. I just don't want to talk about it too much. I think you should go into it blind, but definitely not one for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. I think about this book on a regular basis, but not in a good way. I still give it 4.5 stars, but the way, when I think about it and think, what the hell? What the actual, yeah. So if you love dark romance and you haven't read this yet, because I don't really see this spoken about a lot, you need to read this. It's the only Sam Mariano book I've read so far, but honestly that book makes me want to read more from her, because she really takes it there. So next up, this is a dark vampire romance, and it's Blood Orange. This is book 1 in a duet, which is Black Rose. Now, Black Rose is okay, it's okay. The duet as a whole, I think, needs way more recognition. It's incredible. Blood Orange was one of my favourite books of last year. I gave it 5 stars. Just so you know, it's insanely spicy, so just be aware of that going into it. It's really, really spicy, and it starts really, really soon. So if you don't like that in your books, you might not love this, but the actual whole story and the plot line is really, really interesting. So basically, this follows a girl who she's going, I think she's at uni, if I remember correctly, or some kind of like college, and she's studying. It's set in Venice, very like dark noir vibes, very like old school Venice, you know, with the vampires and the witches and everything. That's all like low key, so the actual humans don't know that the vampires and witches are existing around them, and they've been sort of like kept under wraps for hundreds of years. This book, it's so deep. It's about love transcending time and always finding your soulmate. It's beautiful, paired up with a perfect amount of spice and also a really intriguing plot, because there's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of intrigue. There's reincarnation in this. It goes from past and present, and then it's just so good. And there's like a secret guild in it, and they're sort of covering things up, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it. There is so much going on in such a small duet, but it's so good. It's very action-packed, very fast-paced. There's a few things about the second book that I didn't love, but I think I still gave it like 3.75, maybe 4 stars. Really good wrap up, but this book is just incredible. So if you haven't read Blood Orange and you like vampires and you like dark romance, you need to pick this up, it's amazing. The last book, again, is a book that I did read quite recently, and it is Master of Salt and Bones by Keri Lake. If you like gothic dark romance, this book is for you. This is, again, one of those books that, like, I've only seen a couple of reviews about it, but the reviews I have seen, people love it. And this is my first Keri Lake book, and I was very, very impressed, and I can't wait to read more by her. I know she doesn't write primarily gothic dark romance. This is basically about a guy who lives in this huge mansion up on the hill. It's set in a coastal, like, seaside town. I love those settings in a dark romance, love it. And Isadora, who is our FMC, she goes to work for Lucien, who everyone in this town is scared of. There's so many rumours about him, about what happened to his wife, what happened to his child, is he a murderer, like all that stuff. She ends up going to work for him. His mother lives up there as well. She's really creepy, collects loads of dolls. At the beginning, he doesn't take very kindly to her, makes her feel very uncomfortable. He's not that welcoming, and he's got a huge past. This prologue is one of the best prologues I've ever read, and the minute I read it, I was like, I can't stop now. I have to get to the end of this book, because it was that good, the prologue. So really good, really well written, a bit slow, which is why I only gave it 4 stars. But aside from that, it's a great story, and basically it just follows Isadora and Lucien while she's living in her house, uncovering all of these rumours. Are they true? Are they not? What's really going on in this mansion? And there is a crazy twist in it. There is a twist that I didn't see coming. There's a twist at the end which genuinely shocks me, and I just thought it was the perfect wrap up to the story. People need to talk about this more. I feel like it's criminally underrated for a dark romance. I hope you guys, if you do end up getting any recommendations from this and you go on to read them, I hope that you enjoy them. If you've read any of these books and you like them, please let me know in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys about books that we've read. I just absolutely love it. If you didn't know, I have made a Bookstagram fairly recently. I'm very active over there. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading in real time or with me on my stories and things, then follow me over there. It's at poppysabrina_reads. And I will link that down below as well. And also, if you have any recommendations for books that you think are underrated, that you think I would enjoy or others would enjoy, also comment those down below. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.